4 days of continent-wide elections culminate in a Super Sunday. 21 nations vote for their EU representatives. 388 million people are eligible to choose their parliament's 751 deputies. The Israeli and Palestinian presidents both accept an invitation to meet the pontiff at the Vatican next month. A possible breakthrough that comes as Pope Francis pursues his trip to the Middle East. And as Ukrainians come out en masse to choose their post-revolution president, Rome says an Italian journalist has been killed in the east. Pro-Russian separatists in the region are disrupting the poll. Hello, I'm Nadia Sharbi. Thank you for watching France 24. Voters in 21 EU member states, including France, Germany and Italy, are taking part in the last leg of a 4-day continent-wide election to select their European representatives. Faced by mounting hostility towards Brussels, bureaucracy and the harsh austerity policies adopted to overcome Europe's debt crisis, political leaders have been at pains to spark interest in this vote and reconnect with the bloc's 500 million residents. Well, to give us a sense of how the poll is going in Germany, let's cross now to our Berlin correspondent, Jessica Solz. Jessica, hello, thank you for being with us. Germany is the only EU country to have come out unscathed from the crisis. Has that had any effect on voters' interest in this poll?
Yes, I think it absolutely has. Already a couple of hours ago, turnout was looking like it was going to be higher than it was in 2009, when only 43% of Germans voted. As of 2 o'clock today, over 25% of Germans voted. We have not yet got the final turnout figures, but this was already an improvement on 2009, so is seen as being quite positive. However, there is also a certain feeling of voter apathy here in Germany, despite it being Europe's strongest economy. The feeling amongst many Germans, many who I've spoken to, is that felt in many countries amongst Europe that they don't really understand necessarily what the European Parliament is for. They feel that it's very bureaucratic, that it's not representing their needs. There also hasn't been much of a distinction between the two main parties here, the SPD and the CDU, their two main drives in this campaign, which has sort of lost voters along the way.
Jessica Solz reporting there from Berlin. Thank you very much for that. For more on how the poll is going here in France, let me give you the first turnout figures. At 5 p.m. Paris time, 35.07% of voters had cast their ballot. That's 2 points higher than 2009. So the same sort of thing as we're seeing in Germany. We cross now to France 24's Nicholas Rushworth, who's at the Socialist Party HQ here in Paris. Nicholas, hello, thank you for being with us. What's the mood like where you are?
Well, the mood is pretty gloomy, you could say black or bleak, because what's going to happen this evening, the expectation is that there will be a third place for the ruling Socialist Party behind the opposition UMP and the far-right National Front. Now, of course, we saw in the municipal elections in March a real drubbing for the Socialists. So again, are we going to see another low point for the party? Now, of course, what's going on here is a management message session here in the meeting currently underway in the Socialist Party headquarters. They're going to be speaking with one voice, saying, well, yes, we did expect this, we're prepared, it won't affect the direction we're taking, and these votes are always difficult for us, and the Europeans always attract fringe parties anyway. So expectations are low, but if the Front National, the far-right party, is first and the ruling party is third, then that will be an electroshock for French politics.
Because voters have been tough on the socialists this year, so this could turn out to be another bad day for President Hollande.
Well, it could indeed. He's already had a tough day because he drove down to the southwest to Toul there to cast his ballot, and then he drove back again, a 10-hour journey. So he'll be watching events this evening in the Élysée Palace. Of course, back in the municipal election in March, he took a Falcon jet and got lots of criticism for that. Now, he, in this European election campaign, has said, I have a vision for Europe, and I'm telling you that you must not exit the EU. You must not exit history, if you remember that phrase he gave a few weeks ago. Now, what he's saying as well is that if you leave the euro, you'll only have more austerity. So his message is slightly threatening, but he has also acknowledged, well, yes, I do see that there is a lack of trust and confidence in the EU, and the polls are showing that 80% of French people are not giving their thumbs up to the European Union.
Nicholas Rushworth reporting there at the Socialist Party HQ here in Paris. Thank you very much for that. I'll be broadcasting our special European election coverage from 8 p.m. onwards, with all our reporters, including Jessica Saltz and Nicholas Rushworth, bringing us the first exit poll figures and then official results at 11 p.m. Paris time. So do join us for that on France 24. Now, landing in Tel Aviv this Sunday, Pope Francis addressed Israeli officials, calling on this holy land not to be exploited and reminding his hosts of the fact that Jerusalem is by name a city of peace. The Pope called on all parties to multiply their efforts to end the Middle East conflict, to show courage and determination in seeking dialogue and reconciliation. He also repeated his invitation to both the Israeli and Palestinian leaders to join him in prayer next month at the Vatican, an invitation that both men have accepted. Well, here's a clip of the Pope's address in Tel Aviv.
We must promote education where exclusion, where conflict should give way to meeting, to inclusion, where there is no room for anti-Semitism in any form. The education must exclude hostility and intolerance for other peoples.
Well, the pontiff arrived in Israel after a visit to Bethlehem in the West Bank. Charlotte Hawkins has more on that.
Flying straight into Bethlehem, it's the first time a pontiff has travelled directly to the West Bank without visiting Israel first. A nod to Palestinian statehood ambitions, Pope Francis received a warm welcome from President Mahmoud Abbas before heading straight to an official welcoming ceremony. Weeks after Israeli-Palestinian peace talks failed, the Pope condemned the stalemate as unacceptable.
The time has come for everyone to find the courage to forge a peace which rests on the acknowledgement by all of the right of two states to exist and to live in peace and security within internationally recognized borders.
En route from the ceremony, he made an unscheduled stop at the Israeli separation barrier, pausing for several minutes to pray, before returning to his itinerary. On Manger Square, close to where Christians believe Jesus was born, the Pope celebrated an open-air mass.
Beautiful. Can't believe that all this happening in Palestine, and it was a great day.
It was very emotionating. The Pope was talking about peace, and I felt now peace is possible.
Spending just 6 hours in the holy town before heading to Israel, Pope Francis ended his time in Bethlehem in line with his papacy's mission to tackle poverty, meeting with children from Palestinian refugee camps.
Well, the pontiff is now making his way to Jerusalem, and France 24 will, of course, bring you all the highlights of that part of his three-day trip. Now, Belgium has launched a nationwide manhunt for a lone man suspected of staging a shooting spree at the Brussels Jewish Museum on Saturday. 3 people were killed at the scene, an Israeli tourist couple and a French woman. Another Belgian citizen was left in a critical condition, and we're now getting reports that that person has also died. Now, while authorities are calling on the population to help identify the suspect, police have now released video footage taken around the time of the attack. You're seeing it there. Meanwhile, the possible anti-Semitic nature of the assault has drawn widespread condemnation and a tightening of security in Belgium, but also in France. Here's the reaction of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The murder yesterday in Brussels, as a result of an ongoing incitement against the State of Israel by various sources in the Middle East and Europe itself. There are sources in Europe who rushed to condemn the building of an apartment in Jerusalem, but are in no hurry to condemn, or condemn in a weak manner, the murder of Jews here or in Europe itself.
As Ukraine holds its first presidential poll since the ouster of Viktor Yanukovych, long lines have been snaking around polling stations in the capital, Kiev, this Sunday. A stark contrast to the troubled east, where heavily armed pro-Russian rebels have been blocking access to the polls and intimidating voters. Well, after weeks of intense and deadly battles, there have so far been no signs of clashes. However, officials in Rome have announced that an Italian journalist has been killed on Saturday. This during a mortar shell attack close to the flashpoint eastern city of Slavyansk. Well, our correspondent Rob Parsons has the latest now from Donetsk.
Leaders of the separatist Donetsk People's Republic threatened before the election here in Donetsk that there would be violence if people went to the polls, and that, it seems, has been enough to prevent any sort of election taking place here in the city of Donetsk today. The head of the city election committee announced this morning that people shouldn't go to the polls, that all the polling stations would be closed, that to go to the polls would be to risk violence and to provoke an incident. And it seems most people, in fact everybody who had been intending to vote, and that could have been as much as 40 to 50% of the population here, decided to stay away. Some didn't get the message. There was a rumor flying around at one stage that there was a polling station specially opened at the airport. We went there. There was no polling station. There were a few people wandering around looking for it. The election simply did not take place here. Elsewhere, the situation was rather different. In some towns to the north of Donetsk, Krasnoarmeysk, for instance, where we went this afternoon, an election did take place in several villages and in the town of Krasnoarmeysk itself. There wasn't a big turnout, somewhere in the region of 10% by 1 o'clock local time. That's perhaps because just a few days ago, on the 11th of May, when the referendum was held here on whether or not Donetsk should be independent, there was an armed incident in which a couple of people were killed in Krasnoarmeysk. That may have put people off. But anyway, in general, there was a reasonable turnout. People said that they hadn't been forced to stay away. The members of the Electoral Commission said there'd been no threats against their person. To the south of Donetsk as well, in the big city of Mariupol, 500,000 people, the election went away without any provocations whatsoever, no threats or violence. Not a big turnout again there either. The overall impression created is that where the Donetsk People's Republic has been able to prevent an election, as here in the city of Donetsk, they have gone ahead and prevented it taking place. But elsewhere, away in the small towns, it seems they haven't had the manpower to enforce their will.
Well, let's get some culture news now. It's a wrap. The red carpet has been rolled up, and after a night of partying, the southern city of Cannes can go back to business as usual. The 67th Film Festival drew to a close on Saturday evening, with the Palme d'Or awarded to Turkish director Nuri Bilge Ceylan for his 3-hour-long drama Winter Sleep. Well, Rochelle Harrison-Pless takes a look at this edition's big winners.
The curtain comes down on the 67th Cannes Film Festival. And in a glittering ceremony on Saturday, Turkish director Nuri Bilge Ceylan and his film Winter Sleep beat 17 other contenders for the prestigious Palme d'Or. He dedicated his win to the youth of Turkey and to those who'd lost their lives during the political turmoil.
We had a very troubled year last year, and these young people actually taught us a lot of things. And some of them sacrificed their life for our future.
The 3-hour-plus film was perhaps a surprising choice, given critics and festival-goers picked Xavier Dolan's Mummy for the top honour. The 25-year-old Canadian director was instead awarded the Jury Prize, an honour shared with French director Jean-Luc Godard and his work Goodbye to Language.
Pretty moved to actually been acknowledged by this incredible dais, incredible body of jurors, whom are all very, very, very impressive artists.
The Grand Prix went to one of only 2 female directors in competition, Italian Alice Rohrwacher for The Wonders. Timothy Spall was named Best Actor for his portrayal of the great British artist J.M.W. Turner in the biopic Mr. Turner. And Best Actress went to Julianne Moore for her role as an aging screen diva in David Cronenberg's Hollywood satire Maps to the Stars. But some big favourites missed out on prizes this year, the film Timbuktu among them. It went home empty-handed.
And on that, we're leaving this edition. But for more, you can, of course, visit our website. That's france24.com, where you'll find more on all those stories we've been developing here, as well as sports and business news and our special coverage of the EU elections. So do check that out. Stay tuned to France 24. There's more coming up.